Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through our Dynasty Rookie tight end rankings with tiers before the 2025 NFL Draft.
Hike!
In this episode, Joe and I are going to be going through our top 10 tiers or not tiers. It's top 10 rankings with tiers, I should say. So, Joe, why don't you start us off with tier number 1? Who do you got there?
All right, in tier number 1, I've got Colston Loveland, and at number 2, I've got Tyler Warren.
For those who maybe didn't hear, I said Homer because Joe's a Michigan fan. For me, at number 1, I've got tight end Tyler Warren, and then number 2, tight end Colston Loveland, and that's it. So you and I both have the same tight ends here, but flip-flopped. So what makes you put Loveland at number 1 other than he's a Michigan Wolverine?
Yeah, I honestly just think, he's got the higher ceiling when it comes in terms of his receiving ability compared to Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren makes for a better overall NFL tight end, but in terms of dynasty and for fantasy reasons, I feel like Colston Loveland's got their higher ceiling with being a smoother route runner. He's got a lot of potential, and I kind of see him being like a Evan Ingram style tight end where he's more of a receiving entity than an all around tight end, and he's got to get stronger and better at the blocking part.
Interesting. I kind of think the opposite. I actually think that Loveland has more the ability to be an all-around tight end, and Warren, I think, is kind of he's the ultimate Swiss Army knife to me. I mean, I don't think he's going to be running Wildcat in the NFL. Maybe it worked in Penn State. I don't see that happening. All the players are much faster and quicker in the NFL, so I don't see that happening. But I mean, he had 104 catches, 1,200 yards, and over 8 touchdowns. I mean, now he only broke out this season, so I do think that could be a cause for concern. Where I think Loveland's been more consistent across his career. But I actually think that, Loveland's more of an inline guy where, Warren may be more of kind of that H-back style. So I don't know. I wonder if Loveland will see more snaps than Warren will in the NFL.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Just the way teams view it. I just wonder early on, like Loveland's young. He just turned 21 earlier this month. Tyler Warren's going to be 23 by the time the season starts. So I just wonder with that different experience and stuff, if it might just take a little bit of time for Loveland to gain the snaps, just because, yes, his frame isn't the best and he's not the strongest in terms of the run blocking. So I'm wondering if that could just affect his possible playing time on early downs.
I was very close to putting Loveland ahead of Warren, to be honest with you. I mean, his effort is impeccable. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've watched all his games, so I'm sure yeah. But he has great route running. He really just pulverizes guys. I mean, he really just lays it in there. I was impressed. I mean, seriously, and he's a big end zone target as well. I think he can do that at the next level. So, but it was hard to deny what Warren, his stats. I mean, for a tight end to do that, and with his ability, it's just like, man, it's really tough to overlook that. So it was close. It was real close. Both of them are very good for different reasons.
Yeah, no, they both are really good, and that's why I think we have them both in the tier 1 here. And just kind of like you said, you got them just flip-flopped here.
All right, why don't we go over to tier number 2? Who do you got there?
All right, in tier number 2, at number 3, I've got Harold Fannin Jr. At number 4, I've got Elijah Arroyo. And number 5, Mason Taylor.
Okay, at number 3, I've got Harold Fannin Jr., and that's it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that he is in a tier all by himself. I do think it's very risky because he is more of that H-back style. He's very, you think he's a Jonnu Smith type of prospect. So the question is, can he get into the right system to maximize his talent? Is he Jonnu Smith in Miami, or is he Isaiah Likely, who's been somewhat of a disappointment other than his week 1, stellar game that everybody went to go put all their fab for last season, and then we're disappointed. So to me, I mean, Joe, he had 117 catches, over 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. He had 31 missed tackles forced, which led the FBS. I mean, to me, Joe, he's just a football guy. I mean, he catches in traffic. He always makes the first guys miss. He had 8.1 yards after the catch. I know people are going to squabble that, he looks stiff and, he's a, 4.71 40-yard dash time. But, you know, people are all excited about Elijah Arroyo, and he ran a
Yeah.
4.69, and Mason Taylor ran a 4.65. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about shades of a second. This guy, to me, this is where throw. I'm not saying you throw the analytics out all the time, okay? But in this situation, he's just a pure football player, and I'm betting on him just being a good guy, a good player at the next level.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, I think there's something to also just be said where, like, he was the main target on his team and still had all that production. Nobody could really stop him. Everyone in the stadium knew the ball was going to go to Harold Finian Jr., and it just simply didn't matter. And I like the fact, too, I mean, you mentioned his big playability, but, he had 26 receptions of 20-plus yards, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Very impressive. So to me, I that's why I felt like he was in a tier of his own, because I don't think he's like, he's not as safe as Loveland and Warren, because he's
Yeah.
undersized, at 6'3", 241. But again, I don't know. I could be wrong about this. There's always going to be outliers. I try to say this, time and time again. Don't just be stuck in the minutia of, well, the numbers and the analytics say this. I get it. There's a place for them. But I'm pounding the table for this guy. I really think he could. Now, we'll see where he goes and
Right.
how high. This is all pre-draft. When after the draft is done, you have to go back and reevaluate here. We're looking at it just based on talent. Then where was the landing spot? How high was the draft capital? What are the coaches and the coordinators saying about him in post interviews and how they want to get him involved? Like, there's so much more to the story. We're just at the cusp here.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, we're simply just going off of, different players' athletic abilities and different things that we've seen and everything else. But, once we know the landing spots, I mean, that really does change everything.
So what made you put Arroyo and Taylor in the combo here with Fannin in tier 2?
Yeah, I just I kind of like all three of these guys. And that, they all feel like they're all like reliable target options, all decent route runners. And they all are kind of, they all can kind of be the vertical threats with their and their speed and route running ability. And then I also like how these guys just like really, finish the plays, as they were running with the ball as well. And that was this thing like their yards after the catch ability on top of everything else as well. So I feel like I couldn't, with a lot of these guys, it was hard for me to find separation. So I felt like I would just lump these guys in there in tier 2 here.
Well, let's head over to tier number 3. Who do you got there?
All right. And tier number 3 and number 6, I've got Terrence Ferguson. And that's it.
Oh, okay, interesting. So I've got number 4, tight end Elijah Arroyo, and then number 5, tight end Mason Taylor. So I wasn't very far off from you when it came to Arroyo and Taylor, and I even thought about having them in that tier with Fannin. But to me, I was going through the same thought exercise as you, and we did not compare notes. So this is interesting. We're reacting to this in real time here. But I just felt like Fannin was more in a tier of his own than a guy like, Ferguson, who you have as a tier of his own. I do like Arroyo, and I do like Taylor. They're definitely, better size than Fannin. Arroyo 6'5",
Right.
250. Taylor 6'5", 251. There's a lot to like about both of them. Taylor's has been more consistent in his career, whereas Arroyo really came on the scene last year. Arroyo, I think, is a really budding player right now. I really like his movement skills at his size. He's got great yak ability, so really like that about him. With Taylor, he's got the bloodlines, obviously, with his father, Jason Taylor. And he's just a natural mover, to me. I think he'd be a great fail-safe for a quarterback. So now, are either of them going to be elite? I don't know. I think they could be average. I think they could be good. I don't know if they're going to be like maybe the Chigakonkos of the world, but I think they're going to be like a tight end 1. That's where I feel like Harold Fannin is just in a class of his own compared to those guys. But I could see why you put him in there. But let's hear what your thoughts are on Terrence Ferguson. What made you put him here?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I just felt like he was better than the other guys left on the board here, so that's why I've got him in the tier of his own. I really like his acceleration off the line of scrimmage. He's another good route runner. And then ultimately, like just watching some of his tape, I just liked his big playability, and Oregon would just throw those screens out to him, and he had the opportunity to really cut up field and make those big plays. So I like that ability that he had, and I feel like that was a separator from the rest of the remaining group there.
Let's head over to tier number 4. Who do you got there?
All right, in tier number 4, at number 7, I've got Aronde Gadsden, and at number 8, I've got Gunnar Helm.
Okay. For this tier for me, I've got number 6 Gunnar Helm and number 7 Terrence Ferguson. So not too far from you as far as Ferguson goes. I almost put Ferguson ahead of Helm, to be honest with you. It was really tough. What I like about Ferguson is he's got sneaky athleticism to me. I really like his change of direction for a tight end. That was what to me kind of jumped out the page. With Helm, it seems like a lot of the draft community really likes him. He's more of your prototypical inline tight end. Was interesting how he twisted his ankle, ran that 40 time, ended up having a 4.84, which I don't know if that's really hurting his draft stock or not. To me, I felt like he looked a little stiff at times, and I felt like he kind of lacked that shiftiness that I would kind of look for at a tight end the next level who we think could be a good receiver, because obviously we're thinking about this from a Dynasty Fantasy Football standpoint. Do you think he could be a red zone threat? Ultimately, what made me kind of lean more towards Helm versus Ferguson was just basically based on pure production. 60 catches, 786 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. So I'd say he's a better blocker than Ferguson, so he might be able to be on the field more, I would anticipate. And so we'll see. There's a lot of people who really like him.
Yeah. One of the things with Gunnar Helm, I just you mentioned he is a good route runner. He also was very good at getting open in the red zone and making himself available. Also a reliable target, but I was just kind of disappointed with his ability, after the catch and making people miss.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
highlights like I saw him getting tackled right away, and didn't necessarily have that, despite being like a pretty good route runner. And you mentioned like him being stiff. I mean, that was kind of why I had like a guy like Ferguson over him, just because I can see that athleticism and just that ability to create those bigger plays, which is big for fantasy.
Oh yeah, he dropped like a rock. Anytime anybody made contact with him, he was just put down.
Which I was disappointed with, because I mean, at his size, I feel like he doesn't really play as big as he should.
No, absolutely. He's like I don't know. He just flop. There he is. And there's no fight. There's no fight at all. It's just boom. So I'm with you. That I saw that too, and that I was not a big fan of that.
Yeah,
at least Ferguson's
like
got wiggle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I like those players that got some dog in them, looking to
Oh,
people
I know
over, and that's what I saw with some of those guys earlier that I talked about, but didn't necessarily see that with the Gunnar Helm.
But does Aronde Gaston have dog in him? I mean, he's a
No,
different type of tight end there.
He is a different type of tight end, and that's why I had him where I have him. But I was also, for him, coming, his dad was a good wide receiver, and I feel like I would viewed him as more like a really good receiver, and I think he's a really good route runner. But that was one thing I was disappointed with him as well. Like, to me, I thought he was going to have a little bit more wiggle to him and a little bit more of that dog in him, and maybe just plowing guys over and really creating more after the catch. And I was kind of with the realm of Gunnar Helm there, I was kind of disappointed in how easily he kind of went down, despite being 6'5", 243 pounds. But, he had 73 receptions for 934 yards, 7 touchdowns at Syracuse. Like I said, he is, just a really good, polished route runner that can be a receiver, and that's why I got him over Gunnar Helm there.
So, go on last but not least here, tier number 5. What do you got there?
All right, and tier number 5, at number 9, I've got Jake Briningstool, and at number 10, Luke Lachey.
All right, at number 8, I got Aronde Gaston from Syracuse. 9, Jake Brenningstool from Clemson, and Luke Lachey from Iowa. So it looks like you and I yet again have the same 10
Same 10.
guys, just in a little bit of a different order. For me, when it comes to Gaston, I think the tough part with him is he's going to be your Jimmy Graham type of tight end, right? He's not a
Yeah.
blocking tight end. He's going to be used as a receiving threat. I just don't think the NFL has done a really good job with getting these tweener types that are receiving. It's a player who plays tight end, but there really should be a receiver, but they're not a receiver. I just can't remember a lot of players that they've actually been successful. Now you've had, I guess I take that back. You think of guys like maybe like Jimmy Graham, maybe like an Antonio Gates, even a Tony Gonzalez. I don't remember. I think those guys I think they were good blockers. I should probably know that, but
that was one thing.
know.
I mean, Graham was coming out saying like he wasn't the best blocker. I think he turned into a halfway decent blocker, but obviously that's not his specialty.
Yeah, Graham was a completely different. I mean, because he's a basketball player.
Background, which I mean, Antonio Gates had that too.
Right, exactly. Gonzalez, I don't think as much. Gonzalez was actually legit as far as like an all-around tight end. I think I'm making a mistake.
I think he was a better all-around tight end in terms of blocking.
But Gates but I just feel like the NFL has not done a very good job of identifying these guys and actually like bringing them out and getting the best out of them. So, I mean, there's no doubt it's impressive. He had 73 catches, 934 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns, like you said. It's just a question of can he either A, improve his blocking so he can be a more prototypical tight end, or B, if he's not, can he go to a place that has a creative scheme that's really going to use his talents? So with that, to me, I just haven't seen the NFL be successful with that. Brenningstool is the same guy. He's not strong enough to be a blocker. So to me, he's going to be involved in receiving packages. He also had 7 touchdowns, 49 catches for 530 yards. I just like Gaston a lot better. I kind of see both of them in a similar light.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Obviously, Gatson had a better, 40 time than Brenningstool, but you're not
by
wrong
a couple
in terms
seconds,
of, they're not, they're relatively around the same player. But one thing I thought was interesting with like Brenningstool is, a guy like 6'6", he's kind of got that long speed, and it's kind of sneaky with his long strides, and eventually he's not the best accelerator, but he's got the long speed over time, and he does create the separation to get down the seam.
And what about Luke Lachey? That was the last guy you and I both had in the tier. What did you see out of him?
Yeah, I just see him as really just a, really nice, reliable tight end. He's not anything crazy athletic or anything, but he just knows how to, find the open spots in like the zone defense and reading out the defenses and just creating that nice, security blanket for a quarterback. And, he's a guy that's also just a reliable pass catcher as well.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, at the end of the day, he had that right ankle injury, had surgery in 2023, really prohibited him from really taking that next step. I think there are a lot of people who are really excited about him. He was a backup behind Sam Laporta. Iowa is basically tight end U at this point.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are just in general excited about any Iowa tight end that comes out in the draft. But he's got bloodlines. His father, Jim Lachey, was an NFL All-Pro. And you got to remember, Iowa's a heavy run system, so it's not like he's getting a lot of opportunities. So if you look at the stats, 28 catches, 231 yards, and 0 touchdowns, you're like, poof, why you want this guy? So
yeah,
he's definitely not a looker as far as that's concerned, as far as the stats. But I think you're right. I think he could be a better pro than he was a college player.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, just getting to another, like you said, I mean, Iowa they had their quarterback issues and everything. They're just run first, heavy run team. I mean, no team in the NFL is really into that heavy run as much as Iowa is. So he'll have definitely more opportunities at the next level here.
So that does it for this episode. We went through our top 10 rookie tight end rankings with tiers. You got Joe and mine. And if you haven't done so already, check out our most recent episode where we talked about our top 15 Dynasty rookie wide receiver rankings before the NFL draft. You're going to want to check that out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.